Alright, time for another DraftScience video presentation. So anyway, it's just kind of discouraging on the internet, frankly. So the last whole video I made didn't reach 200 views. It took 2 days. Pretty bad. Anyway, so that's a little discouraging, the comment video. So then I did request from the California Institute of Technology an explanation for their takedown copyright claim. And so a very nice fellow responded, and just doing his job kind of crap. But the gist of it is they were, complaining that I had the image of the text page on the screen. I mean, apparently they weren't worried about me playing Feynman's tapes. They were worried about me displaying the page that has the text on it. Anyway, which, is just kind of hilarious. Like this is somehow going to vitally hurt their book publishing or something like that, when, ironically, their page is also unmonetized, as far as I can tell, completely unmonetized. So they really can't complain. It's just not a rational complaint. But anyway, and this page was also part of the. You're not supposed to display the the audio file player. Apparently, that's copyrighted also. Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I did file a counterclaim, a couple of days ago, so in a couple of weeks it'll be back up. But it was an interesting conversation anyway. It really wasn't that interesting. It's just interesting. Human beings are interesting sometimes. But anyway, so I don't know if I have anything else to say. It's just kind of strange that everybody thinks this is. They have some description of what they're doing, and they have some idea that, oh yes, I'm protecting, and they're not really protecting. Their job isn't to protect. Their job is basically to attack, steal from other people their rights. And just kind of funny that they can have the impression that they're doing something that's either honoring Feynman or honoring the California Institute of Technology. And I would argue that these kind of copyright claims aren't honoring either one. But whatever. All right, in other maybe news, I don't know if it's really news. We'll find it anyway. Blah, 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 blah. I've got way too many tabs open. Way too many. Insane number. That's what I want. So this other website that you can post the Veritasium videos to, it's very annoying. I mean, you go to sign in, you can't even create an account with a computer. You have to use the app, and blah blah blah. So I haven't done the app thing yet, so I can't change the bio. I can't edit anything. It's really kind of quite annoying. But anyway, the curious thing is the first video I made got 660 views, which is pretty good, right? And then the next one's 587, and then 545, and now dead. Just so apparently your first 3 videos, they do some displaying of them. Some, they come up on the front page or something, and people do see the video. Now it's random people, so that's not very useful. And the videos aren't very well titled and all this other stuff, so it's really hard to. It's not even that they're videos, right? These are just animated GIF things, right? They're just minute-long visual pieces of art. So I don't even know why Veritasium included this as a source for the competition. It just, the 1 minute thing is bad enough. The idea that you're just supposed to do visually interesting things. This is just part of the Twitterverse. It's just, it's not going to make people smarter. Converting everything into, images and barely any content. Just headlines, no story. no, it's not a good idea. It's not a good place we're going. But anyway, it is just kind of a dramatic decline, and you're just like, wow. So I really shouldn't invest any time in, reformatting and blah blah blah. So each one of these videos is a little different than the YouTube version because it's a different video. I mean, I did make a different minute video. So anyway, if you're interested, I'll leave a link to this whatever page. But yeah, I don't see any value in this way of providing content on the internet. But anyway, whatever. So in other news, oh yeah, there really isn't any. Yeah, so yeah, it's a little discouraging. So no new comments, no counter argument of any kind that I can, by anything but subhumans. I mean, yes, subhumans can make counter arguments, but they can't make them in any kind of form that could be considered something worth paying any attention to. So I don't know what they're up to, but if anybody knows of a counter argument to anything I'm saying in these videos, I'd be interested if they can glean that out of all the lies and rubbish that these other people need to publish. Like I said, the fake websites, the fake bullshit. I mean, it's just amazing the effort they're going to slander and to degrade my reputation somehow with distortions and perversions and exaggerations and absolute made-up crap. So anyway, yeah, so nothing to say there. Just, so where do I go from there? So I have been thinking about different things. I mean, the writing thing, it's time probably to do some writing because there's a bit of a lull here in terms of arguments. But the very process is, complicated by it's a very simple idea. You're describing the physical universe and you say there's 3 dimensions. Well, then you have to qualify that. Well, what happens in the 3 dimensions? Well, yeah, things move in the 3 dimensions. And what are things? Oh, well, things is a little complicated, right? Because you have forces moving, and then you have the material bits moving. So you have to qualify, and you have to redefine each word. So I could have a simple sentence. I even wrote a simple sentence. Okay, it's a mechanical universe made of stuff moving in 3 dimensions of empty space. So, I mean, it's like each one of these words now you have to dissect, right? What does mechanical mean? Well, mechanical means it's not poofing. It's not, stuff doesn't just appear or disappear. And the stuff has accountable properties, limited properties. No match. No, can't just do something. It has to be cause and effect. So mechanical is basically saying cause and effect. And it's saying there's no spontaneous and there's no instantaneous. So you have to explain these words, okay? Even the word universe. Well, we'll let that one slide. But stuff, so stuff gets a little complicated because you have to say, okay, there's 2 kinds of stuff. There's this matter stuff that doesn't have any innate motion, and then there's the force stuff, bits, that appears to have all the motion, that it's doing anything that's moving is moving because force is acting on it. And in acting on it, that means it's pushing it. So, yes, so then you have to sort of get to, well, it's a push universe. So that's not included, but that's part of the explanation. And then once you say there's bits of stuff, then you have to explain, well, yes, there's electrons and protons. So there's 2 different kinds of matter, charged matter. And that you could speculate that the force is likewise polarized. And there's 2 kinds of it. And the 2 kinds have inverse effects on electrons and protons, and therefore you can explain why there's attraction and repulsion. All right, that's just the word stuff, right? And then you say empty space, and then you have to explain what a space is. That the space is nothing. It's nothing. And stuff just moves, distance in it. And then that gets you distance gets you into the time thing. And the time thing, you just explain, well, time only exists because whatever this is, these interactions that are happening, these forces and these matter bits, they don't do what they do at instantaneous speed. They move at some finite speed. So because there's finite speed, there's finite time, and there is time. There wouldn't be any if everything happened at once, without any delay, without any time. Then everything would happen all at once, and it would be over, and there wouldn't be any sequence of events. But there's a sequence of events because the events take time. They can't happen instantaneously. So anyway, so you have to go through this whole process of explaining. All right, well anyway, so that's part of what I will get to in terms of maybe writing that, maybe eventually putting that in a video form in terms of making those qualifications. But I mean, I'm arguing for a very simple universe: 2 plus 2 plus 2. 2 kinds of force, 2 kinds of matter, 2 kinds of interaction. Push and don't push, basically. And that's all you need to explain the fundamental elemental mechanisms controlling everything. Everything is based on those ingredients, and everything is just an emergent complexity made out of the fact that there's a ton of this stuff, and it gets into all kinds of patterns. It gets trapped in all kinds of places, in circumstances, in conditions. The universe gets into conditions that narrow potential and cause things to happen over and over again. Anyway, reflections and such. So where else do I want to go? I guess I can make a couple of kinetic energy arguments, but it's just I really can't generate much enthusiasm because there's obviously no one capable of making a counter argument in anything like a civil, decent form. It doesn't have a bunch of lies in it. Anyway, I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. So I've made the argument that the 8-pound bowling ball kind of argument, there's no experiment demonstrating where this kinetic energy formula is proven, where they collect the extra energy, where they take a 10-ton train moving 5 miles an hour and a 5-ton train moving 10 miles an hour, and they make electricity with them, and they make twice as much electricity with the 5-ton going faster. There's no such experiment, so there's just no evidence of this being collected. And I would say that it's been around a long time, the idea. So with water wheels, for example, certainly you get more efficiency if you can direct the water so it all hits paddles on your water wheel. So yes, that's more efficient. But there isn't any, I don't think, theory from the past where they argued it was more energy, that they're actually gaining more energy, or that fire hoses work that way, for example. Like somehow, because I take the water pressure and I push a small amount of water fast, that somehow I'm gleaning a lot more energy out of the water pressure. That all I'm really doing is focusing it. So I'm just taking a 5-watt laser beam, a laser light, a light bulb, and I'm just focusing the light. By focusing the light on one area, it's obviously more intense in that tiny area, but there's no expectation that it's actually more energy, that there's actually more capacity to move elements of the universe with it. And I could make the same argument about bullets. Bullets hit one tiny little area, all of the energy is dispensed in that one area, and it's all dispensed in a short amount of time, which makes it appear like it's more energy, but it's just an appearance. There's not more energy, there's just more action in a shorter amount of time. It's not, I shouldn't have said more action. The same amount of actions happening in a smaller amount of time, so it looks like more, and it's over a smaller space. It's involving a smaller number of atoms, so obviously it seems more energetic for those atoms, but that's only because there's fewer things being done with the energy. So there was another example. So rotating wheels, even, so you could get into angular momentum and energy. And you could argue that smaller wheels don't make more energy. They just mean it's going faster, right? The rotation speed is higher, but it doesn't mean there's more energy because you have less density of material moving. So I'm just saying there's so many little pieces of evidence indicating that there's no reason to believe, okay, from those things to project some idea that there's actually more energy. Just like you have no expectation that if I drop, a lighter thing twice as light from 4 times higher, that when they hit the ground, the lighter thing has 4 times more energy, when it doesn't even have 2 times more energy. It has the same energy. So even though it fell a lot further in gravity, it didn't do anything but gain twice the velocity, and twice the velocity and half the mass will make the same dent in the ground. And there's no reasoning defending any notion that it's actually more energy, that the ground is more affected, by the light thing traveling faster than by the heavy thing traveling slower. So there's lots of little pieces of evidence. And again, the fact that they don't have a single piece of experimental evidence in all this time, 300 years, and they haven't figured out one experiment they could do to demonstrate that the 8-pound bowling ball, so to speak, the 8-pound bowling ball going twice as fast somehow would knock down twice as many pins. They don't have a single experimental piece of evidence demonstrating that to be true. And yet people just keep arguing it's the truth, and they won't even address the fact that is this good physics for you to argue that it's the truth when you don't have any experimental evidence, and when the experimental evidence is pretty easy to glean. I mean, we're almost back to the weighing a Newton thing. Why did physics decide not to weigh a Newton, in motion? Dropping a Newton 1 meter is a joule. Well, why don't you just drop a Newton 1 meter and see how much a joule weighs? It's too simple, too obvious. And so why are they evading that? And then you can just go to, why aren't they doing the Eddington experiment from space with 400 times better resolution? I mean, not 4 times better, not 40 times better, 400 times better. An insane advantage. And yet they've never attempted it. And you don't need an eclipse. I mean, it's so simple from space, compared to from Earth, and yet never even attempted as far as we know. Does that make any sense? Come on. You can't concede these points that your physics is on a really rubbish foundation, that it's not good science, that it's not doing this really disciplined thing of really trying to prove stuff. It's just barely trying to glean enough evidence to make an argument, and that's it. Again, the Young experiment has been wrong. The geometry and argument of the Young drawing of 2 waves coming out of the double slit experiment has been wrong for 200 years. That math doesn't work. It doesn't predict the pattern in light. Okay, you won't get the double slit pattern doing that geometry. It won't work. And it hasn't worked for 200 years, and yet they still argue. That's good physics. That's a good way, good interpretation. It's a good simile. It's a good, it's a good analogy for what light's doing. And it's a terrible analogy because it's not what light's doing. And it's clear that the math that does work has 4 sources in the double slit experiment. You have to account for that and recognize that, well, if the surfaces are the sources, what happens at surfaces? Well, light changes path when it goes through a surface. So obviously something happens at surfaces that can screw light up. And the obvious argument is this something is hitting electrons, and when it does that, it ends up scattering its energy. And all you do is recombine the energy at a new location. Again, the radar experiment defends that. The radar experiment can be understood, it's just jamming. There's absolutely no difference between the geometry for a jamming argument and the geometry of wave interference. Except the jamming happens at the target and the wave interference has to happen in space. Where forces interact with forces, which experimentally doesn't happen. We can't make a force act on a force. We have to make a force act on a matter. I mean, these are pretty solid facts, and you just ignore all of that to defend what is just really poorly evidenced physics. And it just surprises me that so few of you are pervious to reason, that you're just so belligerently devoted to these themes. And what kind of themes are they? They're just wooey. Bent space, entanglement, superposition. I mean, this is fairy princess story kind of stuff. This belongs in some sort of Disney movie. It doesn't belong in reality. It's terrible physics. And so you're just saying this is really just religion coming home to roost. That humans will, their intelligence has no value, meaning to them. All that matters is what feels good, apparently. And the truth is just not that important. And that's sad. For way too many of you, anyway. So yeah, just kind of I will endeavor to persevere. I mean, I can, do what I have to do. I'll make a few more of these 1-minute videos, and I think one of the better ones is the Professor Lewin one. I mean, it does point out a paradox that fits all of the category requirements, so maybe I'll promote that video next month and see if we can get a few more views to make it into the final 100 selected videos. But even that's not gonna, it's not gonna save the day. But we'll see. I mean, clearly the judges, whoever they'll be, will not take kindly to my anti-Veritasium rhetoric. But that's sort of another subject, right? What's going to happen? I mean, the truth is going to eventually have to rise, okay? So eventually it's going to have to fall apart. So whatever the circumstance will be where that will be made possible, a lot of this physics is just wrong. So they have all of this information. You're just saying, like, all these Veritasium videos that are completely wrongly premised, just garbage. Are they going to take them down? What are they going to do with all of these wrong arguments? I mean, all of this bad education that's out there. Because there's a lot of it. I mean, almost every video produced, by these physics types, 90% of it is very flawed, full of these fake assumptions. Light is a wave, we've proved it. All of this stuff, quantum mechanics, superposition is proven, entanglement's proven. All of that becomes, just junk, complete pseudoscience garbage. And do you leave it out there, or do you have to put a qualifying statement? Oh, we figured out that this was bullshit. This was presumptive. The presenter is an arrogant douche. They're going to put that qualification. I mean, I'm sort of doing it to some of Feynman's videos because he was an arrogant douche. It's just a fact. He's basically saying, I didn't think of a better answer, so therefore a better answer can't exist because I didn't think of it, and I'm Richard Feynman. If I can't do it, you can't do it. I mean, that was written all over what he was saying. But anyway, so just a bit discouraging. That's all we'll say. Yeah, it's all just a bit discouraging. The level of conversation that you can glean on this planet is just not very good. You ain't good at it. Anyway, fuck it. That's enough. I will endeavor to persevere another day. Maybe not today. And such. This has been a DraftScience video presentation. Till next time and such. Blah, 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 blah.